Oh, all right. Yes. Oh, hey, you win there.
Thank you, thank you.
Practice makes perfection, you know.
I have many talents that you haven't seen yet. Four white men going live and listening to I Got a Feeling. Amazing start.
Yeah. Very humorous. Very humorous start, you know. On that
Yes,
note.
thank you, thank you. Trying to warm up, you know. Like,
Yeah.
amazing, amazing. So, hello everybody. My name is Toyn. I'm a productivity coach and a co-author of Perform the Unsexy Truth about startup success. And I'm here today with my co-author, Cristobal Alonso, CEO of Startup Wise Guys. And we have two exciting guests joining us from Spain and from Panama. And before we actually continue with the discussion about today's topic on mental toughness, I would like to give you guys short time, 47 seconds, to introduce yourself shortly and share with us who is here today, what have you done, what are you doing these days? Starting with you, Andrew.
Sure. So, Andrew Tarvin, I am, as far as I know, the world's first humor engineer. That's based on me Googling the phrase humor engineer, I guess. If you're like, I've never heard that phrase before, it's because I made it up. And essentially, it just describes what I do, which is to help individuals and organizations solve workplace challenges using humor in the workplace.
Thanks. Luis?
Hello, I'm Luis from Madrid. Well, last year I was 50 years old, so I have a lot of story to tell. No, but I'm mostly like a mix between designer and consultant. So when I'm the business part, I'm a good designer, but a bad consultant. And when I'm working in the design part, I'm a good consultant, but a bad designer. No, so I'm kind of I'm in middle ground, no? And I've been working in Accenture until this January, and also before that in Fjord, which was acquired by Accenture. So I helped to put all the creativity, all the ways of working on the creative innovation and things like that into a big corporation like Accenture. No? So at the moment, what I do is moving from the creation of things to make them big and then move to another thing. So I'm in the transition now.
Right. Cristobal, for the people who haven't met you before, maybe a short introduction for you as well.
Is that even possible? Call me Mr. Humble. Yeah, of course. I'm Cristobal Alonso. As you might have noticed by my accent, I'm Estonian. No, but I'm celebrating Estonian independence tomorrow, and we're very proud in our Baltic republics of that. I'm the CEO of Startup Wise Guys, the most active accelerator in Europe, co-author with Stoyan of Perform, Spanish by birth, basketball lover, love to cook. I'm very, very happy to be discussing mental toughness today. And that was 43 seconds, so I should stop here.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you guys for short, straight introduction. And today the topic is mental toughness, as the gents just shared. We would love to hear some questions from you guys. So if you're watching us live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, or on Facebook, post your question and we'll try to get as many questions and explore the topics of mental toughness. So let's begin the discussion. Andrew, you've been working a lot with humor, with fun. Actually, I'm curious, why did you start doing this? I mean, previously you've been part of Procter Gamble, a corporate. Is it actually needed for companies to learn how to use humor in the workplace?
Is it needed? I mean, I get there's plenty of companies that are awfully boring that have some modicum of success, but I think one is generations change in terms of how they work. Younger generations more and more are looking for, not just a paycheck, but also exciting work. And to answer your question of how I came to this, I remember being in this meeting at P&G at Procter Gamble when I was still there. That was so boring. It was one of those ones that was like so boring you wanted to cry levels of boring. I don't know if you guys have been in a meeting like that. And the problem with this particular meeting was that I was the one leading the meeting. And I had this realization where it's like, wow, if I'm bored while talking, the audience has to be bored while listening. And I had a bit of this existential crisis where I was like, this is the rest of my career, right? Is boring meetings, going into way too much email back into boring meetings. And I was talking with a friend of mine, and he was like, Drew, you love to solve problems. So why not solve the problem of boredom? And it's true. Like, I'm an engineer by background. I do Sudoku and Ken and all that kind of stuff for fun. Like, I don't think of them as math problems, but math opportunities. Like, I love solving problems. And so I decided to solve the problem of boredom. And I brought in what I was doing in improv and stand-up, because I'd started doing improv and stand-up at university. And ultimately realized that I was getting better results when I did that. It helped me to work with the hardest resource I ever had to manage, which was other humans. And so that led me down this path to discover all the benefits to humor, which of course, we can talk about in the framing of mental toughness. But it was basically this kind of through line that, we even kind of share in the book, Perform, is that what gets fun gets done. It's a simple kind of concept, but I do believe it to be true.
Yeah. Luis, you wanted to add something?
Yes, well, we have a saying, one colleague of mine, Juan Llaneza from Fjord, we say that have fun and money will run. And it happens, no? We used to work in we call it the pirate ship, which is like we were like moving off track of the strategic plan, and we always get a lot of opportunities because I think we were enjoying the work, and also the clients felt it, no? So they wanted to work with us, no? They felt that there was something special. When I was building other teams and companies, coming from design, you are more like, you typically connect with people, no? Because you're not talking about numbers, which somehow they close your brain into a linear mode. If I do this, I'll get this in return. But also you have more explorative, more what if, no, this is why, what and how, whatever. No, it's the what if we do this and that, no? So the people, since they see in your eyes that you are enjoying the moment, no, the people somehow they want to make business with you. And as I said, many times they don't understand what you do. They like it, they can explain what we do, but hey, I want to try to do something. Obviously, it's less risky than having a big, huge systems integration. But obviously, the people, I think they need in the companies, they need people that make them have fun, feel creative, and get out of the routine. No? And more or less what I do in most of the companies, trying to create this alternative space where you can create something that is new, because people feel safe and creative. No?
And a lot of the main principles behind Perform are actually for us to be able to create a culture where we have space where people can perform at their best, basically. And I want to actually read the definition of mental toughness we're also using in the book. So mental toughness is defined by the ability to consistently perform toward the upper range of your talent and skill, regardless of competitive circumstances. So what are some of the stressors? And this is a question to you, Cristobal. You've been working with many startup founders. What are some of the biggest stressors, challenges that startup founders are being faced with?
Well, I got the easy question. God damn. This shit, man. Boom, summarize the world of struggles of startups in 2 minutes and 13 seconds. Let me change the answer, and then you can do the British journalist and palm it. But that was not what I asked. No, I'm actually curious about, in the current environment that we find ourselves into Corona, working from home. And one of my realizations these days is that I have way less fun than before because of the ecosystem in which we are, right? So we are even improving our results 2x from last year, 3x from last year, growing. The portfolio is doing amazingly well despite the situation. But it's much more difficult to have fun, right? Because I think we're lacking the interaction with socials, and lacking, winning and shaking five, or going out for a drink with my friends, or talking to my team about, let's celebrate, right? It's very difficult to celebrate over Zoom. You can try many things, the chin, the chan, but they're not together, right? So it goes back to the stressors of founders these days, which is you're having in my opinion, the easiest time ever to have a startup. because it's much easier in the last year to sell online. You don't need to travel to do a lot of the things. You can hire talent everywhere in the world because now they don't need to move to an office. You don't need to have an office. So in many ways, we are in the easiest time ever to scale fast as a startup. Even corporates don't need you to go to headquarters. You can talk to them on a Zoom call, which they never have done 18 months ago. So in a way, it's the easiest time, but it's probably the most psychological environment context most humans under the age of 35, 40 have ever met before, because until now, everything was fantastic. And every year was, as a world, in the Western world, at least every year was 2x. And even in crisis, come on, people were still like having, in most cases, a lot of fun, right? So to me, the key stressor right now is the lack of fun in the current human interactions around of a company compared with what we were used to. And if you have this mental image about how amazing it's going to be to run a startup that is being successful, you are like, damn, we are doubting ourselves. We just fundraise and are not having any fun, right? Mm-hmm. So, and it's obviously depending on your expectations about, all right, don't worry, 5 years from now will be super fun. Some people is good enough at portraying that, but most people even most people who thought in 1 year we'll be traveling again, and then like, fuck, I thought last year that it would be impossible, that 1 year from now we'll still be stuck at home. So now I am almost afraid of making any environments, right? So to me, there's a big stressor, which is going back, is two of them. One is the lack of fun compared with what we were used to. And this aim that I really want to do something that I took for granted before, and now I really want it. But B is the many more people not being able to anymore project forward positively, because they're afraid that they will actually be wrong again, and almost they live in these 24 hours. It looks like Groundhog movie. I get up, I take my kids, I go to work, I finish, I play the piano 30 minutes, I listen to music, I eat, I kiss them, movie, Netflix, bed again, right? It looks like a fucking Groundhog movie, right? Well, half of those things are fun, but they're not anymore, because you have put yourself in this framework of repetition, right? So that's to me a big stressor.
It's like a 365 days day.
But for example, I was talking to people I was talking to Petra, her story is like, dude, I am doing Duolingo, taking on planting, I'm doing more things than ever in my life because I want to do things I'm bored to death, right? So we're taking in new languages, we play new instruments, we do our kids more projects than ever together. Still boring, right? Yeah. So we're doing more and more as individualists. We're probably in the biggest moment of creativity we have ever done, because we're doing so much with our time, because we have so much time that we're not traveling, that we're not commuting, that we're not doing anything, but we feel empty and bored, even if we're being supposedly successful. And it's such an existential moment in a way that we have not faced it before, right?
Yeah, and I think that, to Cristobal's point, not only do you have additional new stressors, right? You have the challenge of working from home, and it's a weird balance, because for the people who are working from home with young kids, their challenge is that they have kids there and they're trying to actually be productive while they also have to educate. For the people who might be single, though, their challenge is that they're just on their own so often. Right. So that kind of working from home, the additional work, the uncertainty. And to Cristobal's point, you don't have the normal forms of stress relief, right? You used to like, oh, I'm just going to go to the bar with my friends after, after a long week. And it's like, well, I can't really do that now, or it's more stressful to do that. Oh, I'm going to go to a gym. Well, a lot of the gyms, at least in the US, are closed. Oh, I'm going to go to a sporting event. Well, you can't do that, or it's socially distanced and there's additional stress to do so. Oh, I'm going to go and play a sport. Oh, well, I can only do these kind of individualistic sports. Like all the things that we used to do to relieve stress are either now impossible to do currently, or more stressful to do, right? It doesn't actually relieve stress. It actually causes more stress. And from a workplace environment, everything is transactional, right? People feel like Alexa and Siri, because rather than having the hallway conversations or the conversation afterwards, maybe you're in a meeting and it's a little bit tense, but you walk out of the meeting and in the hallway, you chat with someone and you kind of relieve that tension right away. Now it just sits there because it was like you're into the next Zoom meeting or onto the next kind of virtual stuff. So I think all of these components come together. And Storian, back to your point around like, why does this impact mental toughness? I'm an engineer, so I've studied everything that I could about productivity, certainly what's in the book. Also, Pomodoro technique and Pareto's principle and Parkinson's law and all these other things around productivity. And one thing that I have learned is that it is very difficult to be productive if you are dead. Or if you feel like death, right? If you are sick and tired, if you're burned out, if you're worn out, if you're stressed out, you're not going to be at your peak performance. You're not going to be able to deliver those results kind of going on. And this is why humor is one strategy that we can use, but it's about being intentional, right? More so before, we used to have the water cooler conversations, and that's where we could get kind of some of the humor day to day. Now we have to be even more intentional about how we're incorporating it so that we relieve the stress for ourselves and for other people.
Yeah, definitely. There is one thing with efficiency. No, if we are an efficient organization and we move that to online, we end up, as you say, like Siri, do this, do that. No, and this is how many meetings feel, even workshops, because we do a lot of creative workshops, but they feel like that. Now you move to this panel, and everything is scripted. No, there's no. As I said, we were talking before the recording started. How when you move to give a talk, you have the context before beginning, no, before starting. So you start talking with people informally. You get a little bit of the grasp of what's happening, no, and when you end up, you also get a feedback. No, now this is okay. You're live. You start talking, and then you leave, no. But I'm seeing a lot of people that are doing very well. I think a lot of companies are giving these free open town halls, no, with clients and people even from the competition. And I think it's very interesting because they are consciously and also intentionally inefficient, no, because there is no business there. There is no, if I put this time here, I get this money there, no, which is the problem, I think, with this Corona thing, no, that if you are thinking in terms of productivity and efficiency, you are making people act like robots, no, and that's the problem with this this thing, no? So for me, this is the point, that being intentionally inefficient and getting off the typical script of your position to just to ping people and say, how are you, no, and I have this fortunately in with people, no, and that's good.
Yeah, just to pick two things that you guys said, well, three actually. To talk about this transactional mentality, I fully agree. I also agree that this is coming from Mohammed about I'm more productive. I think the problem is when you're productive, how much productive is enough, right? But my experience, like I plan a lot, but I used to plan where I'm going to be in a way, right? Because I was traveling a lot. And then when I'm there, I have a main meeting, but then I try to use my time efficiently. The problem now is you're managing everything with your Outlook, right? Or with your Google Calendar, right? So almost it feels bad when you have an empty space of 15 minutes, right? But oh my God, I need to book another meeting, you know? Is the capacity, and almost most of us, in order to have 1 hour of thinking, we book our own meeting to ourselves, because that's the only way to be disciplined, to really have time for you. So is this, you know, there is no barriers of entry for anybody to set up a meeting with you, right?
Exactly.
And most people don't want to say no to a meeting if they have seen, because I say in the calendar that is not empty, right? So the question there is, how do we become that discipline to ourselves about having those 15 minutes to take a walk even around the house? So we can be very efficient, but in the long term, we're going to burn no matter what, one way or another, exactly. Right? So, and I like the idea about, you know, almost booking inefficient, I wouldn't call it meetings, but in efficient times. And, you know, we try to do a lot of these things that has nothing to do with the company. Let's do a Zumba meeting. Let's do a catch-up meeting. But again, how can we build the chit chat into our life, right? Because again, most of us are obsessed about being efficient. We go to a meeting and I want to get the meeting going, but in fact, there is no coffee machine. So I need, and as a CEO, people is doing what I do in many ways, right? So if I come in, it's like boom, boom, boom. You know, it's going to be boom, 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 right? If I come there, it's fine if we take minutes just chatting and people being a bit relaxed and setting the mood. That's allowing those 10 minutes that you don't have between meetings, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, it's very conscious about how are we setting to ourselves, our providers, everybody dealing with us, that, hey, we can have transactional meetings for 30 minutes, it's fine. But even if you have anything longer than that, allow some time to, you know, to pace down, pace up in the meeting, pace down again. Not, hey, guys, I have to go to the next meeting in 1 minute. You're creating this image that, oh, fuck, having 1 minute. You know, people tells me, Cristobal, when we book vacation in your company, we feel bad because you never take vacation. And I see your face every time we say, I'm taking, I said, hey, it's okay, go on vacation. But you look like I hate you because you're taking vacation, right? But I'm being told that, right? So now I'm trying to be super conscious about those things, right? And about, you know, in the company, we need to be alive. You said, if we are not going to be efficient, if we are dead.
Yeah.
So I am responsible for my company health, not just for mine. And I need to put a good example there, right?
Absolutely. Well, and I think an important point that you hit on there, Cristobal, at least from a humor side of things, the number one reason why people don't use more humor in the workplace is because they don't think that their boss or coworkers would approve. Which means then if you don't have humor in your workplace, if your team isn't, you know, sharing jokes, if they're not starting with a little bit of kind of the social lubricant at the beginning, or if they're not doing these other things, then you're probably part of the reason why. And probably not necessarily maliciously. It's not like you may have never come down and said, we don't use humor, we're always about the work, or you've maybe never have like explicitly said that out loud, but there's good chances that because of how you behave, because you don't use any humor yourself, or because of how your face looks when someone else laughs or whatever, then you might be creating this culture that isn't welcoming of humor. And I think people sometimes think that it has to be, oh, I have to start telling punchlines, or it has to be this big ordeal type thing. And it can be pretty simple. In fact, maybe just to add a little bit of humor to what we're talking about now, we can each answer this question, but you can start a meeting and say, hey, we're just going to take 5 minutes. And just very quickly, I want each person to go around and share, what's the first thing you remember buying with your own money, right? So for me, I remember I saved up some money from doing some chores around the neighborhood, and I bought a toy from Exo Squad. So Exo Squad was a cartoon TV show in the United States. It's basically like G.I. Joe, if you ever watched that, but like a knockoff version of it. So it was like a mix between G.I. Joe and Power Rangers. And I bought this toy, right? And you can start with a simple question like that, and you start to already get to know the human side of things. People can also share that in the chat as well. What is something that you remember buying with your own money? But Luis, Doyen, Cristobal, I'd be curious to know what's the first thing you remember buying.
But we're too old. We don't remember shit from that.
Well, only the Spanish people will know what it is. Record of Mecano. It's a techno group in the 80s in Spain. So
I would say that or football stamps, probably. I don't know which one of these two.
Yeah, true.
Like it was basketball because I was probably actually saving money to buy a basketball magazine at that case. But I would say, yeah, it's even music or something about the stamps collections at that time, right?
I think for me, two things come to mind. One was this Mickey Mouse comics of Walt Disney. So I think that was like, I had like a whole box, but like it was such a pleasure the first time I can, go into the kiosk and just take my own Mickey Mouse comics. But then I think the other thing comes to mind is one of this Nintendo game box kind of thing. We were collecting, me and my brother, for, I don't know, a couple of months, right, or more, to be able to, all the grandfather, everybody supporting with some funds, and then we finally had a chance to get this. So it was really cool.
Yeah, actually, Andrea, one thing I think we actually probably is coming from you. From reading you, or maybe a conversation you have actually with Sanne when she met you so right now, for example, we finish meetings with thank yous, right? So we ask people, hey, 5 minutes, anything you want to thank, right? And it's very funny because if you don't make a point, you finish the meeting, oh, we don't have time for thank yous today, next week, right? So almost it's the last thing you want to do. So we make a conscious effort, but it's about, this finish in a positive, so again, it's not humor, it's the positive energy, right? Or the positive atmosphere. So we put this, at the end of each meeting that we meet the whole team, we do these thank you notes. But just wanted to say as one anecdote, so it was the birthday of our chief growth officer last week. And he said, this is him, and he said, I want to celebrate in my own way. So he sent to everybody in the team something he wanted them to do in the team call. So we have these Tuesdays, the entire company in a team call, right? And he basically made us wait a fucking hour, everybody doing a different role script. So they was not able to do any business in that 1 hour, right? And for example, mine was I had to speak with Nigerian English, right? And I had to do it without, one of my colleagues had to have a lipstick that was like this, like, you know, you say realistic, it was like this, and you have to stay the whole hour. One of them was a unicorn with a cocktail the whole time, and you had to stay like nothing was happening. One of them has to do James Bond movie titles and everything she was saying, and she managed to get the entire 40 people with something that he has scripted, and you could see at some point people were just switching off the cameras because they were just cracking their butt off so much that they couldn't allow it. But it brought, I think, was like, okay, a liberating. Now we have another month that we can leave because we just got all these laughs together out in the environment. So it was a bit too much in terms of time for me as CEO. But again, it was a good idea that, you know, these things just creates a completely different atmosphere in a team and rebuilds some connections that we might have lost because of the transactional direction of the times, right?
Absolutely. And I think, you know, one of the things, at least that I think about it as an engineer, because I am someone who's obsessed with efficiency, right? Like I listen to podcasts at 2x speed because it's faster. And also more people sound like me. Their voices are higher, which I appreciate. But I'm obsessed with efficiency, but there is a difference. And Luis kind of mentioned this. There's a difference between being efficient and being effective, right? If you're like, I need to drive as fast as possible from Lisbon to Moscow, that you wouldn't be like, great, I'm not going to stop for gas at all, right? Because you would then, the car would break down on the side of the road and you wouldn't get anywhere. But instead, you're going to stop periodically and refuel. And that's the same thing that humor can provide, is the same thing of like, you know, it's recharging. That's what we're talking about, is what are the things that are effective? Because you think of, okay, that meeting that you all had for this person's birthday, you're going to remember that one probably 5 years from now, but so many of the other meetings you're not going to remember. Even this conversation where we're getting to know people a little bit more. Imagine you did that in a sales call, and now I know that Stoyan grew up on Nintendo, and I might make a reference in my email, my follow-up email to him, and be like, hey, and you know, here's some type of Super Mario thing, or hey, this is kind of like a mushroom, and hopefully we'll be able to help you level up. And it's not necessarily the greatest humor in the world, but now it's much more personal. Now there's an actual connection there, and we're doing business with humans and not with Alexa or Siri. That's what it feels like, I think, sometimes with Zoom. And the one thing I'll just kind of say is, if you do have an Alexa or Siri or smart device at home, just be sure that you are saying thank you and please to those smart devices. One, because you want to stay in good manner when you're talking in virtual meetings with other people. But two, if there is a robot uprising, you want Alexa to be like, you know what? They were one of the good ones. And it's a preservation technique.
Yeah, I remember that 20 years ago when I was not smart, you said this, no? And because they record everything, no? Now, one thing that I know about humor, but also is a bit being able to be yourself, no? Which is one thing that I know. In most of the companies that I work, we have this creative part, which was design, it was creativity, innovation, whatever. So you need humor, and you need to collaborate a lot. So we found out a lot of people coming to us just because they felt safe. No, they could talk in a different way they didn't have in the boardrooms, no, for instance. And I see most of the corporations, normally they buy humor. They don't buy creativity. They buy a way of thinking of alternatives, no, to what they have, no. But at the same time, depends on the level of what is at stakes in that work and in that meetings, the bonuses, the rewards, the incentives. Sometimes they are designed to create stress. So that's the point. It's continuous growth, a lot of pressure. So it's very difficult to be humorous there. You have to take the people into apart and doing things in a different way. But the context many times is quite serious. No, I'm boring. But it seems like if you want to be a professional, you have to be boring and you have to suffer a lot. So, which is, in my case, is not what I think. No, I want to suffer, but obviously doing something that matters to me. No, so then it's not suffering; it's growth. It's about evolution. No? Yeah.
Yeah, and Natalie Nixon just posted a comment. Love the phrase that humor is a social lubricant.
Definitely.
Humor also helps to physically relax us. And actually, I love what you guys been sharing previously with respect to we need to be more intentional in terms of managing stress these days, because it's not like before, right? Like you go to the office, you meet people, you kind of, hey, let's go to the bar after work. Like it happens without you have to do something about it. But now it's just you're home. If you're not intentionally set up some fun activities, some stress management things, doing some games, whatever it is, go for a walk with somebody new, do something random, call someone. If you don't do it, it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
or it's not very likely to happen. So emphasizing on the importance to actually be more intentional and self-management, like, okay, let's take ownership, right? Understand
but
that.
yeah, and to me, but sorry, I'm looking at this today a lot as a manager of people, right? Not as a self-management, right? I don't know. I think most of us, because of our life experience, or maybe not, but I feel like we are very resilient. We have found many tricks to get away from many of these things, and probably at least these last 10 years, probably we get away. We don't have almost any hair, so it doesn't matter. We're not going to lose anymore. But it's how do we manage in our people? Again, in people with 20, 25 years younger, right? I just came out. I had a call with one of my colleagues, one of my team members, like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. You gave me this thing on Thursday, and I have not slept well since then. And I was like, holy shit. I thought I gave a very exciting assignment to this person. And I said, hey, this is what I don't want to tell you what to do. Just do what you think. If you need any consultation, let me know, etc. So I was thinking, I'm really empowering this person. I really want them to grow. And I have created a person that has not slept for 4 days, right? And of course, because you only talk to them usually on the phone transactionally, on WhatsApp or in Zoom, I couldn't see her face until now. I couldn't hear the breathing. And I was like, holy shit, right? So it's like we need to find so many different ways to measure and index our individual, even the team, one by one people stress. And we're not used to that. Because we have the coffees, because we have the managers, but not the managers don't see the other managers. So to me, I really want to have not self-discipline. I want to have team discipline. I want to get as much info as I can, and I have to be extremely responsible of what is happening in their lives, because I want them alive and happy when we get out of this one, right? And Andrew put very well, if you have kids at home, it's very difficult if you're a single mom with a kid at home, or you're completely alone and you haven't seen a human being, except you call in Zoom for months, right? And each of those situations are creating a very different level of stress on the people. And a call at 7 o'clock to each of those groups means something very different. So you have to be careful. So I think we need to be suddenly have to be much more individually managing people, or maybe we're managing groups much more until now. Because the one-to-one is how we're going to be able to get the feedback, not in settings with people in Windows or Zoom, right? And I think that is making us think and probably change a lot, or at least adapt a lot how we're doing things these days, or we have to at least think about.
For sure. And what I would say for me for that is one, recognizing that, leadership is not a hat. It's not like one size fits all. And, an attempt at efficient leadership, and this is one of the big changes that's happened with leadership over the past 20, 30, 40 years, something that Luis can probably talk a lot about, is that leadership used to be about efficiency. If you're running a factory, then how to make things as efficient as possible maybe made sense. But in a knowledge economy, people's emotions now impact their ability to get work done. And so leadership has had to evolve as well. And it's about effectiveness. Efficient is treating everyone on your team exactly the same and just being like, I'm just going to be this laissez-faire leader. I'm going to be this very kind of dictatorial leader, or I'm going to be that. It's like, no, the adaptation is what makes it more effective. You adapt to the individual people on your team and change, because some people need very clear rules and other people need, hey, just the vision and what they're going towards. And, I think the other thing is, and I just want to touch upon, is that stress by itself is not a bad thing, right? If we're thinking about efficiency and effectiveness long-term, about being productivity and seeking peak performance, stress is part of that. Stress is how we grow. Stress is how we improve. Stress is why we have microwave ovens and not just cooking food over a fire, because over time we're like, how can we do this faster? How can we spend less time, needing to eat food? The issue is when we don't relieve that stress. Chronic stress is when we see all the negative health effects in terms of an increased blood pressure and increased muscle tension and decrease in the immune system and increase in risk of anxiety and depression and heart disease and all that. Chronic stress is that. It's that we have to be intentional about relieving that stress. So I don't want people to kind of listen to this and kind of get the main idea of like, oh, we just got, everything has to be fun. It's like, not everything is going to be fun, but we can be intentional about how we're making sure that we're recharging throughout the day. And along that line, I think, there's a reason why this message is kind of in my background, and it says you are responsible for your own happiness. That, I think, is part of the mindset that we want to start to train people on our team, is to say exactly to Cristobal's example, where it's like, hey, this I thought would help you. I need people to raise their hand if for whatever reason, hey, I'm struggling, or hey, this thing has made me stressed out. Like the fact that they actually came to you, maybe it was 4 days later, still means that there's a good relationship there, because some people would just say, oh, I could never go to my CEO and tell them that I'm stressed out by the project that they gave me. So part of the culture, I think, as a leader is building people's psychological safety so that they feel comfortable kind of saying, hey, I'm struggling, or hey, I need some help, or hey, this, if I got information this way, it would actually help me a little bit more.
Actually, we have a very fresh example. The other day, it was Sunday, we had a team meeting with Cristobal and working on a new learning experience with Perform. And I was exhausted. I was overwhelmed. I was not in a good place. It wasn't like a specific reason. It was just all the things coming together, a little bit too many things to do. We didn't have time to talk to each other much and kind of define where we are going, what are the priorities the last, 7-10 days. And I just wrote Cristobal like an email, explain him what's going on, and we need to postpone the meeting. Let's move it to tomorrow. The next day, we had a really good conversation, half an hour conversation, align all the things, and I'm fully back. But if I don't have this safety to be able to say to Cristobal or to whoever I'm working with that, hey, I'm not feeling well, and there's no reason, I'm just not feeling well. If I don't have this safety, then I'll be even more stressed. I'll try to push it, and it becomes like a vicious cycle. It's just going down and down. And with that perspective, I'm actually curious, and I know we talk about taking care of our team and helping them, but I also want to hear you guys, like, what do you do personally if you are feeling not in your best state, if you're feeling overwhelmed? Like what helps you to get in a better mental state?
I'll let Luis go.
Yeah, no, sorry, I had a call and I had to cut it. What I do is I reach out to people that are like my conspirators, no? Usually I do that. Also, I read, I play the guitar, whatever, no? Whatever it's just disconnecting totally, no? And also, obviously, sometimes what I do is, it happens sometimes that I remember when I have a presentation that is important, or I don't have it until the night before, no? Sometimes, or a talk, no? And suddenly I have some tears in my eyes. I'm not crying, but almost, no? I fucked up everything. I give a whatever, but it's the pattern, no? That tears are announcing that I will have a good day the following day, no? But sometimes I procrastinate too much, which is, I think, mental toughness and procrastination have something to talk about between them. But that's what I do, no? Get into the creative side, and also, as I said, I'm 50, so I have some patterns. I know myself somehow. How do I react when I'm scared, when I'm stressed? What I like, I know how to listen to my body, no? To the sensations. So what I do is try to identify what is happening. Now your body is saying this to you, no? So what I do is trying to manage that and also trying to put it in perspective, because if not, you can panic very easily, no? So that's what I do mostly.
Yeah, I think the key point, Luis, and hopefully it doesn't only come with people our age, but they can do it earlier, is that we know ourselves. We try not to. We know ourselves, but sometimes we ignore the signs, right? But
exactly,
we try not to ignore the signs, right? So if I'm feeling like shit today, there is things you don't do when you're feeling like shit. So you don't have a meaningful talk to your wife or partner, or you don't have the most important discussion about equity or funding or whatever, right? So first is that when you feel that way, you postpone things that it's not the right time to have them, right? Okay. Which immediately actually tastes, wow, okay, I don't have to deal with that right now. I will deal with when I'm in the right place, which is, I believe, what you did, Stoyan, on Sunday, right? The second one is, as Luis says, what is it? It's playing basketball, too bad I cannot do it right now. But okay, at least I try to watch it. But it's cooking, it's playing the piano. So and if you look at all of those, I think it's mostly we try to find things in which we find peace with ourselves. Oh, so definitely the things in which we go back to ourselves. So playing the piano is the music, is the rhythm. Cooking is nothing is bothering you, chop, you taste, right? So I think it's You go back to your basic instincts of feelings and regain contact with yourself. And then you go back to the outside world to kind of touch other people in a way, right? So to me, that's a lot of it. So don't ignore the signs. Take the things that you cannot deal at that point with, and go back to yourself and regain yourself, your comfort with yourself, with the things that you like or that help you to get to that position, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I think is such a I think a great point is that, as you get a little bit older, you start to learn. If you're not at that stage yet, or even because, hey, all the things that I used to do, I can no longer do. For me, that means that it's an exciting time of experimenting, right? Now you can be like, let me try a bunch of stuff and see what actually recharges me. What do I like? Maybe I've never really done much cooking before, but let me give it a go and see if I like it. If it adds more stress, then you stop doing it and you go back to the way that you were. Or let me try, I don't know, maybe I'm doing more walks now. Like, because I've realized one of the disadvantages of working from home is that there is no commute, which I recognize a lot of times is an advantage, but it can be a disadvantage, especially in today's kind of current environment, because you never physically leave your workspace because it's always right there. You sometimes never mentally leave it either, right? It's so easy to you've had dinner, you've put the kids to bed, or you've done whatever. And then you see the laptop sitting there and you're like, you know what, I'm just going to see if there's a couple of emails, and then you end up working even later, right? And so there's no kind of distinction. And so one of the things I've started to do is to create a commute. Is if it's been a little bit stressful, I'll wake up, and before I start the day, it's let me force myself to go outside and go for a walk, right? So I'm not going immediately into my office and starting to work. And then at the end of the day, let me go for a walk a little bit. My wife and I are like, oh, okay, the sun goes down here currently at about 6:30 or so. So at 6 o'clock, can we be sure that we go for a short bike ride or for a walk or something, just so that we have that separation? And right, so you're going to discover new things about yourself. So I think trying a bunch of stuff definitely helps. And then I don't know, I'm an engineer, so I have a 4-step process for managing stress. And so part of that fun, though, is, like I said, is experimenting with stuff. It's okay, let me try this thing. And does it relieve my stress? Great. Does it put me in the right creative mood? I am someone who spends way too much time on Reddit, at least previously. And I realized that can be good stress relief because it's just kind of mindless scrolling, but I'm not productive or necessarily present with my wife after it. So I have to balance for myself. Is it actually a productive use of that kind of relieving stress? And it's going to be different for each person. But I think the point is that have fun with experimentation. Be like, I'm just going to brainstorm a list of 20 different things I could try, and then go through them and see what the results are. You can turn even the process of learning how to relieve stress into something fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
And actually, on top of this, I think this is really good suggestions. One thing that really gets you out of the situation of feeling stressed and overwhelmed is to actually get aware where this is coming from. So I usually, when I'm feeling in such a place, and sometimes it's connected to me being physically not in a great space, maybe, but it doesn't matter. If I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed, I'm just trying to journal it. Okay, where is this coming from? What is really stressing you? It's kind of self-coaching. What is stressing you? And I start writing down what are the things that really stress you. Actually, we included one of the tools in the book, which is the worry clearing tool. In order to clear your worries, you first need to recognize what they are. So basically, make a list of the things that are stressing you out, and then put them in 2 columns. What are the things that are within my control, and what are the things that I cannot control? And it's a very stressful situation for many. My parents had COVID a month ago. I cannot control this. I can maybe impact it in some way to keep their mood positive and so on, but I don't have any control. So the things that I can control on this list, if everything is in my head and I'm feeling overwhelmed, maybe it's because I have so many things there. Okay, if I put it on this line and say, what are the things I can control? I can immediately come up with some specific ideas and say, oh, I'll think about it tomorrow. I'll call this person. I'll take this action. All right, I'm feeling a little bit more in peace right now. And about the things I cannot control, what can I do to see differently? Right? Can I see a different perspective? Can I see where's the lesson in it, and how can I use it in the future? What can I do to actually accept that this is things that are out of my control? And to your point, Andrew, to try to find something that's more light, more not everything can be fun, but at least sometimes we're just so much in our heads, and that's where stress comes from, because we have some expectations about how things should be, and you can't control everything. It just doesn't.
Being a stoic, a little bit, no? One thing that I learned is the other day I saw a video from 2000 year. So it was in Barcelona. It's a documentary about the beginnings of internet in Spain. And it happened that it's me in that video. And it was a 29-year-old Luis there in a meeting. There are no post-its. They were totally different with the clients, the clothes, everything. I had care, but I didn't was looking to my hair or if I was young or the rest of the people. But I was suddenly started to talk with that Luis as if it was another person, a young guy, no? And I was saying, Luis, you don't have any idea what is coming, no? Because I have one, no plan get according to my master plan. Everything went totally different. And I was saying, you're going to leave this girlfriend that you have now, you want to get married, you're going to have two children, you're going to move to Madrid, you're going to travel the world. They don't have any idea of that. And I said this, you won't have a plan and you will suffer a lot because you will take many decisions that you don't know why you are taking. And it will be the inefficient decision. If you put it in an Excel, it will be the contrary of what your parents said to you, no, what you've been taught. It's about making up linear, progressive, and something that you can predict, no, predictable career. So, and what I said is, Luis, whatever you do, talking to him, it was very peculiar, no? It was like, wow, what's happening? I'm talking with myself, and I said to him, whatever you do is going to be fine. No, the problem is that the past successes, because my vision of success is very peculiar. I'm not a huge, big executive or having a big car. It's about having fun, in fact, having an impact with people and enjoying. But the problem is that I don't have the 70-year-old Luis telling me now, you know, Luis, now that you're 50, you're in a transition, the decision you take is going to be fine. No? So that is the issue that you can look in hindsight, but also you can share your advice to other people. So reaching to a mentor, I think, is fundamental also. Sharing, because sometimes we don't take into account the experience of the people that have gone before us. No, they have a lot of, they know the patterns. No, and most of the things are patterns, are stories, and they're very similar. They have different technologies, different contexts, but most of the people have different, in a different context, a different moment in time, they have similar stories, no? And that's why we learn from history and from books about companies, you know, it's about sharing stories and experiences.
Yeah, and I think this is, no, of course, just wanted to build upon your point, because you touched something that to me is a bit of a difference and something we try to impact in the new Europe, right? Because the change of economy, so we're going from communism to capitalism, most of people on their 30s or 40s, they don't have role models, right? Because their parents, they love them, but they have not gone through that experience, right? Yeah. While you and me, Luis, and probably Andrew, our parents, maybe they were not executives in the same way, but they went through the system, right? So you can call them with a professional issue, and at least they will understand the human side of the professional issue, right? In Eastern Europe, the parents don't understand anything about you talking about in many ways, right? And that's in a way what we call it the family, the role that we try to do with a lot of our alumni. But that's what I call everybody. You are role models for the future. People will be looking at you as the journey that you have taken as a logical journey, right? So, you know, and that should be a motive of pride, but also, you know, responsibility in the right way, the responsibility you want to have, right? But it's this lack of perspective because you have not seen your journey in your parents or in your uncles or in your people near you, that is quite difficult. And one of the reasons why we wrote the book. So, hey, there is people like you in the corners of Riga, Prague, Kiev, that is doing the same thing. Don't worry. You know, like there will be people that will be helping you. There will be people that will be generous to you. But it's this lack of role model that is very interesting. And when I talk to a lot of people, again, you say 10 years younger than us in the region, and we really try to put a lot of our experiences, give back. So this give back as mentorship in the region, I think, is even more important than in any other place, because the sustainable network, the circle of support from a business point of view, at least, is much smaller because it's being developed. It's not been there for 50 years or 75 years, right? We have, I think, the luxury and the lack, at least you and me, you know. And by the way, fun fact, Luis and I studied in the same city, in the same university, which is not a very common one. It's a smaller city in Spain. He just did it 5 years before me. But actually, we said 1 year, and we probably were about 200 meters because our faculties are 200 meters apart. But of course, we didn't know each other. But fun fact there, things happen 25 years later. Like, university.
And you did basketball with Genaro.
Yes.
And he's a world champion in basketball, and he went with the Spanish national team in the Olympics, in the World Championship, whatever. And he started with numbers because he studied computer science for companies. No, he started doing the numbers of the matches. No, and he ended up in the Spanish national team. And he moved to the Kinky of Moscow.
He was in Kinky of Moscow.
Yeah, exactly, and whatever team he was there, the teams were having a lot of success, no? And he said, I started with the numbers, putting in a notepad the numbers, but I discovered that if the Gasol brothers don't look at each other in the courtyard, the numbers doesn't come. So for me, that was very insightful because it's what I said. Numbers, whatever you have, they come from interactions between people. So if you don't help the people to interact, you won't have any number. You only squeeze the Excel. No, what is happening in many companies? They are totally run out of human interactions. No, so they're squeezing the Excel, optimizing here and there, changing, moving the accounts to make it look like a monopoly. No, it's like a game now. So that's the point. You have to know where the sources of the numbers and success are, no, and also optimize for relationships because it's where you will have all the results and also the good stories, no, that you will tell to your children, to your colleagues, to whatever. No.
Yeah. Well, and just quickly on what Luis was saying there, talking about the numbers and data, it reminded me of what I learned in programming when I was going through computer science is garbage in, garbage out. And so part of this impact of peak performance is also, what are you consuming? What are you taking in? Like one of the big changes that I made that was a huge help for me was on things like Instagram and Twitter and stuff was to follow more artists and more creators as opposed to news sources or other things. Because even just that small stuff in the feed, like what you're taking in, if you're like seeing inspiring stuff, you're going to be a little bit more inspired. And then to what kind of a little bit what Cristobal was talking about, a strategy that someone told me I thought was very helpful was 5-5-5, right? When something's stressful or something comes up in your experiences, is it going to matter in 5 minutes? Is it going to matter in 5 years? And is it going to matter in 5 decades? Like, what's your perspective going to be? And it sometimes helps you to do that future thinking so that it's like, if you're like really stressed out in a meeting about something and you're like, actually, we're going to laugh about this in 5 minutes. You can kind of shortcut that and happen a little bit sooner. If it's like in 5 decades, I'm not going to care about this thing that just happened. It can help you to reframe some of these things. And, one great way for reframing, just as we're talking about entrepreneurship, and I just learned this last week in a conversation with the CEO of a card company in the US. And he said, also consider the consumer in the room. If you're trying to make these decisions, consider would your end client, your end customer, your end consumer, end user, would they care about what you're talking about in that meeting? Does it positively impact that? Because so often we start fighting and we're going to argue about the like this thing versus this thing. And it's like, does a person who ultimately matter to us, are they going to care about the decision? So you could say a thing about that for your user. You could say, well, my kids care about this decision otherwise. But sometimes just those little tricks to reframe the position get you out of the like butting heads. It's a pattern interrupt for you and be like, no, let me come at this intentionally as opposed to reactionary.
Yeah. It's very funny because I was explaining to my kid the other day what relative means, right? But he asked me, Daddy, are we going to soon? I said, well, as soon as in 1 hour, yes. As soon as in 1 minute, then no, right? We're very, very late, right? And he spent the whole weekend, every time he would say something, okay, let me put that relative. This is me. So it's funny, this 5-5-5, because it's all about relative weight of things, right? So it's about, but I again, it's about stop and said, would you care about this in X amount of time? And, most times he said, no. So then, I love the movie also in Tom Hanks about the bridge in Eastern Europe, and it's this Russian spy, and the guy says, but dude, you seem so relaxed, and they might execute you tomorrow. I said, will it change it if I care? I said, no, then it's okay. So to me, it's about, hey, they care about the things you can influence, and the other ones, they're going to happen. So at least try to influence, and again, it's another way to relativize decisions or stress or things that are happening to you.
We all have we all have this one friend that whatever bad happens to her or to him, they just always laughing about it. I had this friend, he's always, man, you can't imagine. I was just, the bus came like this close before my job interview and it went through a puddle and I was fully like messed up and I went and it was a terrible interview. And I'm like, and this guy's always like that, you know? It's like anything bad that happens is like, how do you do that, you know? But it's also
there's
like,
the gallows humor also, no? When you are about having some problem or whatever. I remember with some clients exams in the university, and you start doing stupid jokes, and the people were laughing. It was like a like a psychological reaction, no? But the point for me is that in the end, stress is absolute. It's not relative. It's I need to solve it now because I'm dying. No, if I don't solve it now, I will die. So that is the problem, that many people live in a continuous and absolute stress. No, they are not able to make anything relative. No, so that is the point. No, and when you try to take out the gravity of the thing, that they say, no, you don't understand anything. No, it happened to me also. I can be very, very dramatic. No, we're dying, everything is, we're going to sink, everybody's dying, we're going to close the company, we're not selling anything, and suddenly you have this person that is like a wise guy, and obviously he says that, hey, look at this and look at that, and suddenly you change everything, because you trust him, and that's the point,
subliminal messages, wise guys, and
exactly, yeah.
TransferWise has become wise. Everything is becoming wise in the last few days, So I feel very good about our subliminal messages.
Yeah.
Guys, I love where the conversation is going. Unfortunately, time is also ticking away, as there was a song. So to wrap up this discussion, I just want to, first of all, thank you so much, Andrew, Luis, for joining us on this journey, sharing from the heart a lot of your ideas, insights, experience. Thank you, Andrew, for contributing also to the book, Perform. And I would like to just give you a bit of a space now to share with the audience, what are you doing these days? What is your focus with you, with your company, with your career? And also, why do you think people should get a copy of the Perform book? So maybe starting with Luis this time.
Okay, what I'm doing, as I said, I left Accenture, so I'm in a transition. And I'm doing some, and this is a Perform and a mental toughness thing. I'm selecting projects and also doing some advisory and things just to keep myself busy, a little bit. And also using the time to connect with a lot of people that I couldn't because of being busy, And also I'm thinking about joining a company or maybe building something by myself or maybe doing both, But in the end, what I will do, whatever I do, I will take into account the book, because I read it and it was like I said, like an operative system. So you can make sure that everything that is needed to make something work is working, And it's one thing that I discovered during my experience. I'm quite dispersed sometimes, I tend up to open many things. My brain is like a network. It's not linear at all. It's always making connections. So I think if I have some of the Perform lessons, what I would have would be like some foundations, So I can build something on top of that. So I think this is what I was saying, that for me, even it could work in a corporation, because you need people to understand how to work in a way that is fun, that is effective, and also that is obviously efficient, and help you to grow. So the book is I think is going to be decisive for whatever I do in my next venture, which I don't know.
Thank you, Luis. Andrew?
I love it. Well, so, experience is the best teacher. To go out and do something, you learn from it and grow from it. And I would say story is the second best teacher, because you learn from other people's experiences. And so that's what's so incredible about the book Perform, is that it's basically this collection and this curation of some conversations and tips learned from other people's experiences. And I think, it's going to save you time, because one, you don't have to go and live those experiences yourself to get the lessons. And then two, you don't even necessarily have to go and do all the conversations that I know Stoyan and Cristobal did. Like you get it all together in one succinct area. So is an efficient way to understand other people's experience. And there's a lot of actionable stuff in it. So that's what I would encourage to go and read the book. If you're kind of really interested or fascinated by this idea of humor, so my company, Humor That Works, that's what we focus on, is teaching organizations how to use humor to be more effective. So thank you, Stoyan. You can go to humorthatworks.com, and we've got a bunch of free articles on there. We've got, a link to our book that came out a couple of years ago. We do a bunch of events, including free open mics. We do some improv workshops. We've got a whole bunch of things that are kind of going up, all with the intent to teach people, one, that humor is a valuable skill to bring intentionally into the workplace, and two, how to use it effectively, to do it in a way that is appropriate given the changing dynamics of every workplace. And if people just kind of enjoy what I said and they want to connect with me personally, then I'm at Drew Tarvin, DREWTARVIN, on all social media. So here on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube. And I still have a MySpace page for some reason. I don't know why MySpace still exists as a website. I don't know why I still have a profile, but I do. So if that's your jam, you can reach out to me on MySpace.
Exceptional.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that for decades. But Cristobal, anything to add? Also, maybe share with the people about wise guys.
You give me the 47 seconds. So, a pleasure to be with Luis and Andrew. I haven't met Andrew in person before, but I have both my team, you, Hassan, I have met him many times. I read the book. I learned, and I said to me, there is nothing better than a book that makes you think and learn something, right? I think Andrew's book actually made me think a lot on that one. Secondly, I had the pleasure to listen to Luis many times. And to me, one thing that he does completely different from others is he brings this humanistic aspect into any process. Might be creativity, might be management. So I recommend that always to listen to him. And now that he's rediscovering his career, hopefully part of his career is inspiring others in putting this humanistic touch. And just wanted to, wise guys, we are about to invest in 18 new companies in the spring. So if you're an early stage startup with a big passion and with a vision, please apply to us. But just wanted to leave with one thought today about the book and about what I have read. I think we are in a time for leaders and not just for managers. And I have read in this last hour, I have heard so many things that makes us better leaders, not just managers. And it's this whole idea about, it's not about efficiency, it's about effectiveness, not efficiency. And that happens we need to lead people today. Crises are time for leaders, not just for managers. It proves the real leaders. And I think a lot of what today was said is a huge amount of amazing stories and principles. And I see that a lot of the things we put in the book, it helps you to be a better leader, just manager. Because a leader will always lead something else if you fail as a company. A manager, you might not have another chance. Leaders will always be able to lead. Managers, maybe you don't have a company to manage anymore, right? So it's time for leaders, and it's time for humanistic leaders, and to reconsider the people in our teams as our key asset that we need to manage, not the money, not the time, is our people. And today, whatever you do as a leader will pay off double, because your people will be way more thankful than before about you putting them before anything else. So to me, hopefully, a lot of the learnings today go from that. And again, thank you, Stoyan, for bringing this amazing quartet, including you, today together, because it's one of the best spent hours of my week, at least for me. And it was amazing to share the room with you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cristobal. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is the last Perform panel from this series. Please let us know in the comments, how did you like them? What did you enjoy most? What was a key takeaway, a fun fact, anything? It's going to be really, really great for us to hear from you. And of course, if you have read the book, send us a note to let us know what you think. If you haven't yet, you can go and find it at theperformbook.com. And soon, there's going to be something coming, so stay tuned. Join the private Facebook group if you're not there yet, and if you haven't got an invite, post in the comments that you want to join, and we'll get in touch with you.
Even if you don't have an iPhone, you can join us. It's not
Yes.
really, we don't make that kind of thing.
Yeah, true.
Post it in the comments. We'll make sure to put you there, guys. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Cristobal.
Thank you so much.
Everybody have a joyful day.
Love it.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.